General introduction. House Stark of Winterfell is one of the great houses of Westeros and the principal noble house of the North. In ancient days, they ruled as the kings in the North, but since Aegon's conquest, they have served as the wardens of the North and ruled as the lords of Winterfell. Their castle, Winterfell, is an ancient fortress famous for its strength. Their sigil is a running gray direwolf on a field of white. Their motto is "Winter is coming," one of the few house words that is a warning rather than a boast. Many of the main characters in A Song of Ice and Fire are members of House Stark. Besides the cadet branch House Karstark of Karl's Keep, the Starks of White Harbor may have other distant relatives in the north. Some members of lesser branches of House Stark rule smaller castles as vassals to the Lord of Winterfell. Culture, appearance, and abilities. Starks are known for their long faces, brown hair, and gray eyes. Some are known for their melancholy and wisdom, while others possess a wild nature, sometimes called the wolf blood. In the current generation, some members like Arya, Bran, and Jon Snow possess the ability to enter the mind of a direwolf as wargs, skin changers, allowing them to experience the direwolf's senses and see through its eyes. This occurs most often when the children are asleep, though they can do it willingly while awake. Customs. Traditionally, House Stark buries its deceased members in the crypts beneath Winterfell. The kings in the north and lords of Winterfell have a statue carved over their tomb, while other family members generally do not. Notable exceptions include Brandon and Lyanna Stark, whose statues were carved by their brother Lord Eddard Stark, and an ancient Stark, Aos Stark. The kingly statues have stone direwolves at their feet and swords laid across their laps, reportedly to keep the dead spirits at rest and eternally in the crypt. Traditionally, House Stark worships the old gods. After Eddard Stark married Catelyn Tully, a follower of the Faith of the Seven, a small sept chapel was built at Winterfell. The Starks have been long-standing friends of the Night's Watch. Four of the youngest Lord Commanders of the Night's Watch in history, including Osric Stark, were the sons or nephews of the king in the north. Members of the Stark family believe there must always be a Stark in Winterfell. When the head of the family is away, the Stark who remains to govern the castle is called the Stark in Winterfell. History Kings in the North House. Stark is an ancient house with roots dating back to the First Men, founded by Brandon the Builder, a legendary figure who lived during the Age of Heroes. Brandon the Builder is credited with constructing Winterfell and the Wall, and other legends connect him to Storm's End and the High Tower. The Starks have been the kings in the north for nearly 8,000 years, possibly starting with Brandon the Builder. The Night's King, who served as the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, is also speculated to have been a Stark, though it is one of several theories. The Night's King was reportedly defeated by Brandon the Breaker and Jorah Mormont. Ancient Starks defeated rival kings, such as the Marsh Kings to the south and the Red Kings to the west. For millennia, the Starks were kings of the north, but their authority was always challenged. Their rivals, the Red Kings of House Bolton of the Dreadfort, were made to swear fealty several thousand years ago and forced to cease their practice of flaying. King Jon Stark drove pirates out of the White Knife region, and the castle Wolf's Den was erected at the river's mouth. This stronghold was often gifted to the younger sons and grandsons of the king in the north. A branch of the Starks, the Grey Starks, became extinct after allying with the Boltons against the Starks. King Jon's son Rickard defeated the Swamp King and married his daughter, incorporating the neck into the domain of Winterfell under the rule of House Reed. When the Andals tried to conquer the north, King Theon Stark allied with House Bolton and defeated Arcos the Seven-Starred in the Battle of the Weeping Water. He then built a fleet, sailed to the Andal coasts, and retaliated by pillaging and killing hundreds. He later conquered the Three Sisters Islands and fought the Ironborn, driving them out of the Bay of Dragons and Bear Island, killing Harren Harlaw. Both places were later retaken by King Loron Greyjoy, and King Roderick Stark took Bear Island back after Loron's death. It is said he did so by winning a wrestling match, though some scholars doubt the veracity of this tale. Later, Roderick's descendants retook the Bay of Kraken. King Theon also crushed a rebellion in the Rills and aided the Night's Watch against the Wildlings. 1,000 years before Aegon's conquest, a king in the north, Brandon the Shipwright, attempted to cross the Sunset Sea but never returned home. His son, Brandon the Burner, burned all the northern ports in his grief, leaving the North without any naval power thereafter. The Starks attempted to conquer the Three Sisters Islands, stemming from conflicts between House Stark and House Arryn of the Vale. Following a raid, the islanders responded by appealing to Marthos II Arryn, King of the Mountain and the Vale. This conflict, the war across the water, lasted for 1,000 years. During that time, Stark ships landed in the Fingers 3 times during the century-long reign of King Rickard Stark. Wolf's Den was burned by the Arryns and briefly occupied by the Stepstone Slavers. Rickard's great-grandson, King Edric Stark the Blind, retook Wolf's Den. After a millennium of fighting, the Arryns won against the Starks, and the Lords of the Vale have dominated the Three Sisters ever since. Centuries before Aegon's conquest, House Manderley was forced into exile from the Mander by Lord Lorimer Peake during the reign of Perceon III, Gardener, King of the Reach. The Starks welcomed them to the north, accepted their fealty, and granted them Wolf's Den and the surrounding lands, leading to the establishment of White Harbor around the settlement. Around 700 years before the conquest, Carlon Stark, a younger son of Winterfell, helped his father put down a rebellious lord. He was rewarded with land and built a tower, naming it Carl's Keep. Over time, the keep became known as Carhold, and Carlon's descendants became House Karstark. The Starks helped repel a major wildling invasion, such as when they, and their vassals, the Umbers, defeated the two brothers who were kings beyond the wall, Gendel and Gorn. 3,000 years ago, the singer Bael the Bard was said to have fathered a son after the firstborn daughter of King Brandon of the Barrow did not bear a daughter. Bael was later killed by his own son, who did not know Bael was his father. Targaryen dynasty. During Aegon's conquest, King Torrhen Stark, with 30,000 northern men, marched south. However, with the burning of Harrenhal and the Field of Fire fresh in his mind, Torrhen knelt without a fight to Aegon the Ferns. Since the time of the king who knelt, House Stark has held the North for the Lords of the Seven Kingdoms as Wardens of the North. Queen Rhaenys Targaryen married Torrhen's daughter to Ronald Arryn, Lord of the Eyrie, in an attempt to bind the newly formed kingdom. Several letters show that Torrhen only agreed to this match after much protest, and his sons refused to attend the wedding. They also did not agree to Targaryen rule. Some spoke of rebellion and raising the Stark banner, but it's unknown if a revolt ever took place. Lord Brandon Stark and his sons, Walton and Alaric, attended the Golden Wedding in 49 AC. However, Brandon died shortly after returning to the north, and Lord Walton was then killed by giants while hunting Night's Watch rebels in the Haunted Forest in 50 AC. In 58 AC, Queen Alysanne Targaryen toured Winterfell and was warmly received by Lord Alaric. His daughter Alara became particularly close to the queen during her visit. Alaric was cold toward King Jaehaerys the Fern Targaryen, blaming him for Walton's death because the king had previously pardoned the rebels. Lord Stark also granted the Night's Watch the land that would later be called the New Gift. Gilding claims the charming Queen Alysanne persuaded Alaric to do this. Yandel writes that a Stark lord's brother sent letters to the Citadel demanding a precedent against the forced donation of property. Thus it is said that the Starks were very bitter about being forced to part with the land at this time, and Yandel believes this may be why Lord Alaric Stark supported Laenor Valarion's claim at the Great Council of 101 AC. In 129 AC, when the Dance of the Dragons began, Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen secured the support of Lord Cregan Stark via the Pact of Ice and Fire with Prince Jacaerys Valerion. Although the North was considered too far away to influence the war, Cregan sent the Winter Wolves army, led by Roderick Dustin, Lord of Barrowton, and knights from White Harbor, led by Sir Medric and Sir Torrhen Manderley. After the final harvest before winter, Cregan led a large army of unmarried men, the destitute, the elderly, and children to King's Landing. However, he arrived after King Aegon the Targaryen was poisoned, and although he had hoped to punish the lords who supported the late King Viserys Valerian, the Lord of Tides sent letters requesting peace. While the court awaited an answer, Cregan was obstinate and arrested all those involved in Aegon II's death, as he opposed the murder of a king. Aegon III. Targaryen, who was not yet crowned, had to appoint Cregan as the hand of the king. Although Cregan held the command for only a day, a time known as the Hour of the Wolf, Lord Stark held trials for 21 of his 22 prisoners, with Corlys being the only one spared. Aegon III pardoned Lord Valerian and restored his title, which Cregan allowed when Alan Blackwood asked him to marry her. Cregan returned to the north the next day. Cregan's successor, Rickon, fought in the conquest of Dorne during the reign of King Daeron I Targaryen. He died while fighting in one of the final battles outside Sunspear. Lord Barthogen Stark, Cregan's second son, died in the Skagos Rebellion during the reign of Daeron the Son Targaryen. Early in Aerys Roy's reign, Lord Baron Stark, Cregan's grandson, gathered swords to fight Dagon Greyjoy, Lord of the Iron Islands. He was seriously wounded in the battle and succumbed to his injuries. His wife and several Stark widows competed for power succession, as there were many potential heirs. In 226 AC, Raymond Redbeard, the king beyond the wall, led his wildling army to invade the kingdom. Lord Willem Stark and Harmon Umber, Lord of Last Hearth, faced the wildling army in the Battle of Long Lake. Though Willem was killed by Raymond, his brother Artos avenged him by slaying the king beyond the wall. Robert's Rebellion. Lord Rickard Stark, advised by Master Wallace, forged alliances with the South. He fostered his second son, Eddard, with Lord John Arryn at the Eyrie at the age of 8. There, Eddard became friends with Robert Baratheon. Rickard betrothed his heir Brandon to Catelyn Tully of Riverrun and his only daughter Lyanna to Robert, Lord of Storm's End. The 4 children of Rickard attended the tourney at Harrenhal in 281 AC. They met Howland Reed. After fighting in the jousting competition, Crown Prince Rhaegar Targaryen crowned Lyanna the Queen of Love and Beauty, ignoring his wife, Princess Elia Martell. In 282 AC, Brandon Stark was at Riverrun when his wedding to Catelyn Tully was imminent. Petyr Baelish, who was fostered by Lord Hoster and was infatuated with Catelyn for years, challenged Brandon to a duel, stating that if Brandon lost, he would have to abandon his betrothal to Catelyn. That didn't happen after the duel. Brandon left Riverrun, promising his future bride he would return soon. However, on his way back to Riverrun, Brandon heard that Lyanna had been abducted by Prince Rhaegar and rode straight to King's Landing, where he was imprisoned by Aerys II for threatening the prince's life. Rickard, who was on his way to Riverrun for the wedding, was summoned to the court to answer for Brandon's alleged crime. Brandon and Rickard were executed by Aerys II. Rickard was burned alive while Brandon died by strangulation in an attempt to save his father. After the executions, the king ordered Eddard and Robert's former foster father, Lord John Arryn, to surrender the heads of the 2 young men. However, Lord Arryn defied the command and raised his banners in revolt. This act is considered the beginning of Robert's rebellion. Eddard made an arduous journey through the mountains of the Moon and the Bight to call upon the northern vassals. The new Lord of Winterfell then marched south and won a crucial victory in the Battle of the Bells, rescuing his friend Robert. He then traveled to Riverrun, where he honored his late brother Brandon's betrothal by marrying Catelyn as part of an alliance to bring House Tully into the rebel fold. As one of the main commanders of the war, Eddard commanded the rebel forces after the Battle of the Trident, following Rhaegar's remnants to King's Landing. However, Ned arrived in the capital after the sack of King's Landing carried out by Lord Tywin Lannister. He found Aerys II dead and Sir Jaime Lannister seated triumphantly on the Iron Throne. His relationship with Robert fractured when Robert accepted the Lannisters' help and pardoned the murder of Rhaegar's wife, young daughter, and infant son. The next day, Eddard traveled south to lift the siege of Storm's End. After the business at Storm's End, Eddard and 6 friends went to find Lyanna at a place Rhaegar had named the Tower of Joy, and found it guarded by 3 Kingsguard knights. Eddard and Howland Reed were the only survivors of the duel that took place there. Eddard found Lyanna dying on a bloody bed, her hand clutching a faded rose. She made him promise her something, the content of which has haunted Eddard ever since. Eddard and Robert reconciled, sharing the mutual grief of Lyanna's death. Eddard returned from the war with his bastard son Jon Snow, and later reunited with Catelyn and their first child Robb after she arrived from Riverrun. Ned buried Lyanna in the Winterfell crypts next to their father and brother. A few months after Eddard's return from the war, his younger brother Benjen joined the Night's Watch as an accomplished ranger. Benjen eventually became the first ranger. Lord Stark fought in the Greyjoy Rebellion in 289 AC, and he took Balon Greyjoy's son, Theon Greyjoy, to Winterfell as a hostage to ensure the Iron Islands Lord's loyalty. Eddard ruled the North on Robert's behalf, keeping his distance from the politically scheming King's Landing. House Stark in A Song of Ice and Fire. A Game of Thrones following the death of the Hand of the King, Lord Jon Arryn, King Robert IV Baratheon, personally traveled to Winterfell to offer the position to Lord Eddard Stark. Lysa Arryn, Jon's widow and Catelyn's sister, had sent a letter claiming that the Lannisters were behind Lord Arryn's sudden death. At Catelyn's urging, Ned reluctantly accepted the position and betrothed their daughter Sansa to Prince Joffrey Baratheon. While the royal party was at Winterfell, Ned's second son, Bran, accidentally witnessed Queen Cersei Lannister having incestuous relations with her twin brother, Sir Jaime. Jaime pushed Bran out of the tower window, hoping to kill the boy to secure the secret. Bran survived but was crippled and fell into a coma. Eddard traveled to King's Landing with his two daughters, Sansa and Arya, while Catelyn remained at Winterfell with their sons. Meanwhile, Ned's bastard, Jon Snow, traveled north with his uncle Benjen to join the Night's Watch. Catelyn nearly went mad with worry for Bran, neglecting her duties as Lady of Winterfell. But she was brought back to reality when Bran's attempted assassin appeared, and his direwolf saved him. While in a coma, Bran had visions of the three-eyed raven. Near the Ruby Ford and the inn at the crossroads, Arya defended Mycah from Prince Joffrey's wrath. This infuriated Sansa. The situation worsened when Sansa's direwolf, Lady, was killed in place of Arya's direwolf, Nymeria, who had run away. In King's Landing, Eddard was outraged that the crown was heavily in debt, especially to Robert's father-in-law, Tywin Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock, and that the king intended to hold an extremely extravagant tournament in his honor. After accepting his duty as Hand of the King, Eddard assigned two of his men to assist the Gold Cloaks in maintaining order in King's Landing. Ned investigated Jon Arryn's death, determining that he had been looking into the king's bastards. When Robert held a small council meeting to arrange the death of Daenerys Targaryen, who had just married Drogo, the mighty Khal of the Dothraki, Ned protested the assassination and resigned. On the streets of the capital, Ned was ambushed by Jaime Lannister in his red cloaks in retaliation for Catelyn's capture of Tyrion Lannister, after her childhood friend Petyr Baelish told her that Tyrion was responsible for the attempt on Bran's life. Ned's leg was broken and his men were killed, but Ned survived, and Robert reappointed Ned as Hand of the King before going hunting, leaving Ned on the Iron Throne. In this capacity, he sent men, including 20 Stark guards under Beric Dondarrion, Lord of Blackhaven, to pursue Sir Gregor Clegane, who was raiding the Riverlands. Gregor's attacks were ordered by Lord Lannister because Lord Stark was injured and thus could not be lured onto the battlefield and captured in exchange for Tyrion. The men sent to fight Gregor were routed, and many were killed. Catelyn took Tyrion to her sister at the Eyrie, but Tyrion was released after Bronn won the trial by combat. At the Wall, Jon Snow coped with the cruel supervision of Sir Alliser Thorne while befriending others like Samwell Tarly and learning from his superiors. Jon became the personal steward to Sir Jorah Mormont, the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. The young men encountered a sign of the evil believed to be beyond the Wall when the corpses of two rangers came back from the dead and rampaged at Castle Black. Jon saved the Lord Commander from being killed by one of the reanimated bodies. Finally, Ned reached the same conclusion as Jon Arryn. Queen Cersei's children were not Robert's, but bastards born from the incestuous relationship between the Lannister twins, and determined that this secret was the reason for Jon's murder. He confronted Cersei, warning her to flee the city. After trustingly entrusting Lord Baelish with securing the Gold Cloaks, Ned confronted Cersei following Robert's hunting accident death, asserting that Stannis Baratheon was now the rightful king. However, Littlefinger betrayed Ned, and the Stark guards were massacred by Janos Slynt's Gold Cloaks, while Ned was thrown into the dungeon. Sansa was held hostage in the Red Keep, but Syrio Forel, Arya's sword-fighting instructor, held off the Lannister men, allowing the girl to escape. Rumors spread that Robb Stark was gathering his forces at Winterfell and marching south to rescue his father and sisters. Catelyn arranged an alliance with Walder Frey, Lord of the Twins, to negotiate passage across the Green Fork, promising that Robb and Arya would marry into House Frey. Robb captured Jaime in the Battle of Whispering Wood and relieved Riverrun from the Lannister army with the Battle of the Camps. However, the remaining Stark forces, led by Rose Bolton, were defeated by Tywin in the Battle of the Green Fork. Initially, Ned refused to recognize Joffrey as king, but finally agreed to ensure Sansa's safety. However, when he publicly declared his support at the Great Sept of Baelor, the new king ordered Ned's execution, instead of allowing him to join the Night's Watch's plan. In response, the Northern Lords in the Riverlands, at Robb's war council at Riverrun, crowned him king in the north, seceding from the Iron Throne's kingdom. Benjen remained missing beyond the wall, and Jon Snow, after briefly deserting to join his brother's army, became part of a large reconnaissance mission to determine his uncle's fate and the threats from the others and wildlings. A clash of kings Robb, king in the north and king of the Trident, invaded the Westerlands, winning a series of victories against Lannister vassals. He sent his father's former hostage, Theon Greyjoy, and his mother Catelyn, as envoys to negotiate with Balon Greyjoy and Renly Baratheon, respectively. However, Theon betrayed him and attacked the north with his Greyjoy forces, while Catelyn's diplomatic efforts came to naught when Renly was killed by Melisandre's shadow assassin. Renly's bodyguard, Brienne of Tarth, switched her allegiance to Catelyn. While Riverrun celebrated the victory in the Battle of the Fords, Robb was rumored to have taken the castle of the Crag. Arya was traveling north with Yoren and the Night's Watch recruits, including King Robert's bastard Gendry, but was attacked by the Westerlands forces at the town of the Eye of the Gods and captured by the Mountain's men. At Harrenhal, she witnessed countless atrocities but remained strong and orchestrated the deaths of some of her tormentors with the help of the assassin Jaqen H'ghar. Meanwhile, Harrenhal fell to Rose Bolton. Arya helped free a group of northern men. Arya then disguised herself and was appointed as Rose's cupbearer, but she did not trust her father's vassal and fled the castle when Rose intended to hand it over to Vargo Hoat. Meanwhile, Sansa was still held at the Red Keep, betrothed to King Joffrey. She was tormented by him, but developed good relationships with Sandor Clegane, Dontos Hollard, and Tyrion Lannister, the acting hand of the king. Bran performed his duties as the acting Lord of Winterfell and hosted two Frey members, Big Walder and Little Walder. Maester Luwin and Sir Roderick Cassel handled issues like the Harvest Festival, the inheritance of House Hornwood, and the cruelty of the Bolton bastard, Ramsay Snow. With the guidance of the Reed children, Jojen and Mira, Bran practiced his innate abilities for prophetic dreams and warging. When Roderick led 600 Winterfell men and others to fight the Ironborn under Damphair, Theon Greyjoy captured Winterfell. Upon his return to Winterfell, Roderick and his army sought to free the castle from Theon, but were betrayed and defeated by Ramsay Snow. Luwin and Roderick were mortally wounded by Ramsay's men, and Theon was captured while Winterfell was sacked. Bran and Rickon were reported to have been killed by Theon, leaving the Winterfell crypts after Roose Bolton departed. The Stark boys separated and fled to distant places for refuge in the north. Beyond the wall, Benjen was still missing. Jon Snow joined Qhorin Halfhand's scouting mission to the Skirling Pass. During that time, he refused to execute the wildling woman Ygritte on the way back to Lord Commander Jorah Mormont. The pair encountered a group of wildlings led by Rattleshirt. Jon, under Qhorin's orders, joined the wildling group as a double agent and was forced to kill Halfhand to prove his loyalty. Jon, now with Rattleshirt, confirmed the threat of the wildlings. A storm of swords with Stannis. Baratheon's forces weakened after the Battle of the Blackwater. The great houses of Tyrell and Martell allied with the Lannisters. The Stark Tully forces fought alone against their enemies in the south and the Greyjoy threat in the north. Ramsay was blamed for the massacre at Winterfell on Theon and the Ironborn. After being informed of Bran and Rickon's supposed deaths, Catelyn desperately released Jaime Lannister in an effort to exchange him for her daughters. She sent Brienne to accompany him to King's Landing, while she was placed under house arrest at Riverrun. Meanwhile, Robb returned from his Westerlands campaign and married Jane Westerling, the daughter of a minor Lannister vassal. Jane treated Robb's wounds, and after the raid on the Crag Castle, the young couple slept together after Robb was informed of his brother's deaths. However, this marriage broke the Stark alliance with the furious Freys. With Jaime leaving Riverrun, Rickard Karstark, Lord of Karl's Keep, in his anger, ordered the killing of Willem Lannister and Tyon Frey. In return, Robb executed Rickard for treason. House Karstark was no longer an ally of House Stark. Lord Walder Frey accepted Robb's offer to pardon the breach of the marriage contract and accepted a solution where Robb's uncle, Edmure Tully, Lord of Riverrun, would take his place. Robb and Catelyn, along with 3,500 elite troops, attended the wedding at the Twins. Robb named his heir, rumored to be Jon Snow, despite Jon's Night's Watch vow, and was determined to march north to reclaim his ancestral home from the Greyjoys. Meanwhile, Arya, traveling through the Riverlands, accidentally warged into the direwolf Nymeria and killed many mercenaries of the Brave Companions who were pursuing her from Harrenhal. She joined the Brotherhood Without Banners, an organization whose founding members included former Winterfell guards Alan and Harwin. However, Arya was kidnapped by the Hound, Sandor Clegane, who hoped to ransom her at Edmure's wedding. While preparing for Edmure's wedding, Robb's army joined forces with Lord Roose Bolton's 3,500 men at the Twins. However, Lord Tywin Lannister, the hand of King Joffrey I Baratheon, had conspired with Rose and Walder, violating the sacred law of guest right. Robb and Catelyn, along with many of their men and retainers, were assassinated and taken captive during the Red Wedding. Bran traveled north with Hodor, Jojen, Mira, and the direwolf Summer. They passed through the wall at the Night Fort with the help of Samwell Tarly and Cold Hands. Further north, Jon Snow immersed himself in the life of the free folk, beginning a romantic relationship with Ygritte and making friends with the king beyond the wall, Mance Rayder, and other wildling leaders. He climbed the wall with Styr, the Magnar of Thenn, and traveled from Queen's Crown to Castle Black just in time to defend it against the wildling attack. Ygritte and Styr were killed in the battle. Command of the Black Brothers fell to Jon after Donalnoy's death. Jon successfully defended the wall during the early stage of the battle below it, until Ser Alliser Thorne and Lord Janos Slynt arrived and imprisoned him for treason. They sent him to assassinate Mance under the guise of negotiation. But the arrival of Stannis Baratheon routed the wildling forces before the two sides could begin negotiating. After the battle, Stannis offered to legitimize the young man as Jon Stark, Lord of Winterfell. However, Jon chose to refuse the offer and was later elected Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. The Hound brought Arya to the Eyrie, hoping her aunt Lady Lisa Arryn would pay a ransom, but they were blocked by a blizzard in the Mountains of the Moon. They were attacked by the Mountain's men at the inn at the crossroads, and Sandor was stabbed. Arya left the Hound by the Trident. At Salt Pans, she used the iron coin given to her by Jaqen H'ghar to board a ship across the narrow sea. On the galley, Titan's daughter, Sansa's betrothal to King Joffrey ended with his engagement to Margaery Tyrell. She began to integrate with the Tyrell women in King's Landing and was nearly betrothed to Willis Tyrell. Instead, she was suddenly married to Tyrion Lannister, but the marriage was never consummated. The couple was blamed for Joffrey's assassination at his wedding feast, when in truth it was orchestrated by Peter Baelish and Olenna Tyrell. Peter smuggled Sansa out of the region, killing his pawn and her friend Dontos Hollard. He brought Sansa to the Fingers, where he married her aunt Lisa and brought her to the Eyrie. Littlefinger concealed Sansa's identity by introducing her as his bastard daughter named Elaine Stone. Lisa observed Peter kissing Sansa when the girl built a snow castle of Winterfell. Drunken, Lisa accused Sansa of stealing her husband and revealed that she and Peter had killed her first husband, Lord Jon Arryn. Littlefinger pushed Lysa through the moon door. With Bran and Rickon reported dead and Sansa and Arya missing, House Stark was generally considered extinct. The Iron Throne granted Roose Bolton the wardenship of the North and legitimized his son Ramsay. Most of the Riverlands lords were returned home. The Valyrian steel sword Ice, House Stark's ancestral weapon, was melted down and reforged into two Lannister swords, Widow's Wail and Oathkeeper. Catelyn Stark was resurrected and took command of the Brotherhood Without Banners, hanging a Frey man. A Feast for Crows, the small council of Queen Dowager Cersei Lannister, regent for King Tommen Baratheon, believed the North would accept Bolton control and the Iron Throne's dominance once the Ironborn were expelled from their homeland. Sir Brynden Tully still flew the Stark banner atop River Run, but Sir Jaime Lannister resolved the issue peacefully with the siege of River Run. Sansa remained at the Eyrie, where she took on a mothering role for her young cousin Robert Arryn. The Lord of the Eyrie, she introduced herself as Elaine Stone to Nestor Royce and the Declarants. Littlefinger schemed to reveal her identity, marry her to Robert's heir, Sir Harold, and leverage the Knights of the Vale to retake the North in her name. Arya arrived in Braavos, where she trained at the House of Black and White and became a faceless man. Stark-aligned soldiers washed ashore at the Quiet Isle. According to the Elder, they were buried alongside their foes. Brienne of Tarth was tasked by Jaime to find Sansa, using Oathkeeper in her journey through the Crownlands and the Riverlands. However, she was captured by the Brotherhood without banners and brought before Lady Stoneheart, Catelyn. A dance with dragons, Lord Commander Jon Snow struggled to forge an alliance with the Free Folk, executed the defiant Janos Slynt, and skillfully navigated the difficult Stannis Baratheon. While once again refusing the king's offer to be legitimized and marry the willing Princess Val, Jon offered advice to Stannis to aid him in his campaign against the Boltons and Greyjoys. At Winterfell, Sansa's friend Jane Poole was married to Ramsay Bolton under the guise of Arya Stark in an effort to legitimize Bolton's rule. With Ramsay claiming the title of Lord of Winterfell, Mance Rayder, disguised and sent by Jon Snow, recruited Theon Greyjoy to help him rescue the girl and deliver her to Stannis. When Jon ordered the reclaiming of Winterfell from Ramsay after receiving a letter, the senior officers of the Night's Watch mutinied at Castle Black, assassinating Jon for allying with the Wildlings and interfering in the affairs of the realm. Bran reached the cave of the Three-Eyed Raven, where he met his final warg dream and the Children of the Forest. The boy began training to master the art of warging. Rickon, Osha, and Shaggy Dog are believed to be on Skagos, where Wyman Manderly, Lord of White Harbor, ordered Davos Seaworth to seek out Rickon so Stannis could rally the Northmen to fight in his name. House Lannister of Casterly Rock. General Introduction. House Lannister of Casterly Rock is a great house of Westeros. They govern the Westerlands. The main and cadet branches of the family reside at the Fortress of Casterly Rock and the port city of Lannisport, respectively. Their sigil is a golden lion on a crimson field. Their official motto is "Hear Me Roar." Additionally, they have another widely known saying, "A Lannister always pays his debts." Traditionally, the title Warden of the West belongs to the head of this family. The Lannisters believe they are matrilineal descendants of Lan the Clever, a trickster from the Age of Heroes who conned the castle of Casterly Rock from House Casterly. They are descendants of the First Men and later gained Andal blood through intermarriage when the Andals migrated to Westeros. Since then, the Lannisters ruled as the Kings of the Rock before being defeated by Aegon the First Targaryen at the Field of Fire in 2 BC. King Aegon allowed Loren the Saran Lannister, the last King of the Rock, to become the Lord, continuing to rule the region. When the events of Game of Thrones begin, the Lord of Casterly Rock is Tywin Lannister. He has 3 children: Cersei, wife of King Robert Thurmond Baratheon; Sir Jaime, Cersei's twin brother, serving in the King's Guard; and his youngest son, Tyrion, who is a dwarf. History: the First Men Kings. The Lannister king suddenly appeared in the historical records of the Age of Heroes. They were first men who gradually took power and ruled most of the Westerlands and Casterly Rock as House Casterly disappeared. They claimed to be descendants of Lan the Clever, a legendary figure famous for tricking Casterly Rock from House Casterly. According to an unofficial source, members from the lesser branches of the family left Casterly Rock and founded a village near the port city of Lannisport, founding House Lannister of Lannisport. Meanwhile, House Lannister of Casterly Rock gradually became the Kings of the Rock. The first recorded King of the Rock in history is Loren Lannister, though Lan the Clever was later given this title posthumously. Lancel subdued House Rayne and defeated the Ironborn King Morgan Banefort, the Andal Kings. When the Andals landed in Westeros, King Tommen the Lannister decided to drive out any Andal lords or people attempting to settle in the Westerlands. By the time of Gerald II and Gerald the Vulture, they had accepted intermarriage between the First Men and Andals. Casterly Rock also adopted and fostered Andal children to prevent rebellion, as had happened in the Vale. When King Gerald died without a son to succeed him, the King's Council chose his son-in-law, Sir Joffrey Lyddon, to take the throne, who then changed his surname to Lannister. House Lannister gained Andal blood from then on. In the ensuing centuries, the Lannister family continued to expand its territories. Syrian captured Golden Tooth to the northeast. Tom and I captured Fair Isle. Lancel Wine and IV fought against the Gardener kings of the Reach and died in battle. Gerald the Great ravaged the Iron Islands. When Harrenhal was the king of the Iron Islands, he had the priest Streak carve up his mother, Lila Lannister. This angered the King of the Rock, who led his army to avenge his great aunt, severely devastating the Iron Islands. While reigning, King Tommen II Lannister sailed to Valyria and never returned. His ancestral sword, Brightroar, was lost with him. House Lannister has since continually tried to find a replacement sword and locate Brightroar, but to no avail. Aegon's conquest. When the conquest began, and the forces of Aegon the Conqueror swept across Westeros, King of the Rock, Loren Thorinoine, and King of the Reach, Mern Gardener, allied to fight the Targaryens. The combined forces of the two kings amounted to 55,000 men, including 5,000 mounted knights, while the Targaryens only had 10,000 men, most of whom were wavering and not truly loyal. The two armies clashed at the Field of Fire, located south of the Blackwater Rush. With their smaller forces facing potential defeat, Aegon and his sisters rode all three of their dragons into battle. This was the only time in the entire war that the three dragons fought together. The dragons breathed fire across the battlefield, burning over 4,000 men to death, including King Mern and his sons. After being captured the next day, King Loren knelt before Aegon and was allowed to keep the title of Lord of Casterly Rock. Loren then became the first Warden of the West. Queen Visenya was reportedly delighted when the Lannisters surrendered after seeing Casterly Rock. The first century of Targaryen rule. In the marriages arranged by the Targaryens among the vassal houses to strengthen friendly ties, the eldest son of Lord Loren Lannister married the daughter of House Redwyn. When the Faith Militant revolted, Lord Lyman Lannister sheltered Prince Aenys Targaryen, grandson of King Aegon the Firnder, and his wife, his sister Rhaena, after the two fled King's Landing. When Maegor the Firden took the throne, Lyman refused to surrender the couple but did not openly support Aenys. On the other hand, he secretly had his bastard son, Sir Tyler Hill, command 500 men to support the prince. Aenys was later unfortunately killed by Maegor at the Battle on the God's Eye. His son, Jaehaerys Westerling, was entrusted to Lyman's wardship by the king. When all opposed the tyrant Maegor, the Lannisters allied with Jaehaerys, the brother of the late Prince Aenys. He later became King Jaehaerys, or Targaryen. Lord Lionel Lannister led 300 knights to King's Landing to attend the famous Golden Wedding between Queen Dowager Alyssa Velaryon, the mother and regent of Jaehaerys and Rhaegar Baratheon, Lord of Storm's End and Hand of the King. He and several other vassal lords unfortunately died in the Great Spring Sickness 10 years later. In 101 AC, Lord Lannister and 300 retainers attended the Great Council at Harrenhal. Princess Rhaenys Targaryen visited Casterly Rock, and the two Lannister twin brothers, Sir Jason and Tyland, tried to woo her. Tyland later became the Master of Ships for King Viserys Targaryen. The Dance of the Dragons in Regency period. The Dance of the Dragons was a civil war for the Iron Throne between two factions. The Blacks supported Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, the daughter of King Viserys the Myrmidon by his first wife. The Greens supported her younger half-brother, Aegon, later Aegon II Targaryen, born to the king's second wife. When the war began, Lord Jason Lannister sided with the Greens. His brother Tyland was appointed Master of Coin for King Aegon II. Tyland took all the royal treasury and divided it into 4 parts for safety. One part was sent to the Iron Bank of Braavos, one part was brought back to Casterly Rock for safekeeping, one part was used for diplomacy and hiring soldiers, and the remainder was used for daily expenses. Lord Jason was killed by Longleaf the Lion Slayer in the Battle of the Red Fork, and the remaining Lannister forces under Sir Adrian Tarbeck and later Lord Humphrey Lefford were routed in the Battle of the Lakeshore, the bloodiest battle of the entire war. After King's Landing fell, Tyland was tortured to locate the whereabouts of the gold and silver in the treasury. Rhaenyra's husband, Prince Daemon Targaryen, suggested giving Casterly Rock to Hugh Hammer, which horrified the then Hand of the Queen, Lord Corlys Velaryon. With Casterly Rock in disarray, the Lord of the Iron Islands, Dalton Greyjoy, attacked the Westerlands to support Rhaenyra's Black faction. Lannisport was sacked by the Ironborn, but the Iron Islands forces could not capture Casterly Rock from Jason's widow, Lady Johanna, who was ruling on behalf of her son, Lord Loren Lannister. After being released, Tyland, despite being severely injured and crippled, served Aegon II until the king's death, and then continued to serve Rhaenyra's eldest surviving son, King Aegon III Targaryen. Tyland served as Hand of the King during Aegon III's regency. Lady Johanna attended the new king's coronation and his wedding to Aegon II's daughter, Jaehaera Targaryen. Although the Dance of the Dragons ended with Aegon III on the Iron Throne, Dalton refused to make peace with the Westerlands. Lady Johanna won a battle at the Crag, but her plan to retake Fair Isle failed, resulting in the deaths of Sir Erwin Lannister and Lords Prester and Tarbeck. Lord Unwin Peake, the Hand of the King who succeeded Tyland, tasked Lord Alan Velaryon with bringing peace to the Western lands. Dalton was killed by Tess, one of his salt wives, and the Ironborn began to retreat. When Alan's fleet arrived, Lady Johanna gave him a golden seahorse and urged him to attack the Iron Islands, but Alan refused. Taking advantage of the chaos in the Iron Islands after Dalton's death, Johanna sent Sir Leo Costaigne to attack the region. Leo led the army to conquer the Iron Islands for the young Lord Lorien, hoping to gain the chance to marry Johanna. However, the Lannister army was eventually stopped at Great Wake, and Leo died in battle. Nevertheless, hundreds of Iron Island ships and many villages were burned, many nobles were killed, and Johanna had the captive Roderick Greyjoy castrated, turning him into a fool for Lorien's amusement. Revolts and uprisings, Lord Daemon Lannister remained loyal to the Targaryens in 196 AC when the First Blackfire Rebellion broke out, but he was defeated by Sir Quentyn Ball at Lannisport. Daemon and his heir, Titus Lannister, both attended the tourney at Ashford Meadow. Daemon lost in the first round to Lord Leo Longthorn Tyrell, but his son won the tourney. Titus later inherited the title of Lord from Daemon after he died in the Great Spring Sickness. Gerald Lannister courted Jane Westerling, Lady of the Crag, but he preferred to remain at Casterly Rock with his brother Tytos. When Lord Dagon Greyjoy raided the western coast during the reign of Aerys Thermon Targaryen, House Lannister built ships to fight back. After Lord Tytos and his daughter, Lady Sorrel Lannister, died mysteriously, Gerald became the new lord. Because of his good reign, he was later called Gerald the Golden. Gerald's second wife, Lady Joanna, went missing in 230 AC. Later, his two twin sons, Sir Tywald and Sir Tyon, died in the Peak Uprising in 233 AC and the Fourth Blackfire Rebellion, respectively. Titus's widow, Ellen Raine, was at odds with Jane Marbrand, the wife of Titus Lannister, Gerald's new heir. Finally, Ellen was married to Walder Tarbeck, Lord of Tarbeck Hall, which ended the troubles. Titus became lord after Gerald died in 244 AC. He was a kind man, but a weak lord, leading to increasing indulgence and disloyalty among House Lannister's vassals, notably Houses Raine and Tarbeck. King Aegon, Sir Olaf Targaryen, had to send forces 3 times to suppress bandit groups in the Westerlands. Titus's brother, Sir Jason Lannister, died in the War of the Ninepenny Kings, but Titus's sons, Tywin, Keevan, and Tygett, together restored the family's honor. Sir Tywin sought to revive the family and crush the uprising of Houses Raine and Tarbeck in 261 AC, the reign of Tywin Lannister. When Aerys the Serenant Targaryen ascended the throne in 262 AC, the king appointed his friend Sir Tywin as Hand of the King, making him the youngest person to hold the position at 20 years old. After Tytos died in 267 AC, Tywin became the new lord. Like his grandfather, Tywin quickly became a powerful and talented lord. When Aerys was captured by Lord Dennis Darkland, Tywin's conservative approach led to the defiance of Duskendale siege lasting for 6 months. This incident caused Aerys's already unstable mind to become more paranoid. This, along with other events, such as the king's lust for Tywin's wife, Joanna Lannister, created an unhealable rift between the two. Despite Tywin's efforts to create a long-lasting and enduring legacy for his house, troubles still arose at Casterly Rock. His two twin children, Cersei and Jaime, began an incestuous relationship from childhood. Tywin was never a joyful man, but when Joanna died giving birth to their third child, Tyrion, he became much gloomier. His brother Kevin became his right-hand man, and his cousin Jenna became a mother figure to the children. His second youngest brother, Tyget, died of smallpox. His youngest brother, Garyon, sailed to Valyria and never returned. As a child, Cersei encountered a witch in the woods named Maggie the Frog. Her prophecy about the future still haunts the young girl to this day. Cersei killed her friend Melara Heatherspoon for witnessing what happened that day. At age 13, Tyrion accidentally met and married a girl named Tysha. The romance was quickly discovered by Tywin and tragically separated. Tyrion was later betrothed to houses Martell, Hightower, Royce, Florent, and Tyrell, but all refused him. Jaime, from a young age, was a brilliant warrior, as noted by Sir Arthur Dane. However, when he joined the King's Guard at age 15 to be closer to Cersei in King's Landing, breaking his betrothal to Lysa Tully and his obligation as family heir, Tywin was utterly disappointed. This incident, which he blamed Aerys for stealing his heir, combined with the Mad King refusing to marry Prince Rhaegar Targaryen to Tywin's daughter, caused Tywin to resign his position as Hand and return to Casterly Rock, foiling Jaime's plan. Robert's Rebellion. During Robert's Rebellion, House Lannister did not side with either faction. Only when Crown Prince Rhaegar Targaryen was killed by Robert in the Battle of the Trident did Tywin finally decide to act. Leading 12,000 men to King's Landing under the guise of protecting the king, despite Pycelle's opposition. Aerys listened to Grand Maester Pycelle, a Lannister loyalist, and opened the city gates. The Lannister army poured in, sacking the city and handing it over to Robert. To prevent the Mad King Aerys from using wildfire to destroy the capital, Sir Jaime Lannister broke his Kingsguard oath and killed him. Sir Gregor Clegane, Sir Amory Lorch, and two other knights under Tywin's command stormed the Red Keep, brutally murdering Rhaegar's wife, Elia Martell, and their young children to demonstrate loyalty to Robert. When presented to Robert, the bodies of Prince Rhaenys and Prince Aegon were wrapped in red cloaks to conceal the blood. Cersei Lannister was married to the new king, Robert I Baratheon, in 284 AC. The reign. The marriage between Cersei and the king, as well as the crown's debt to Tywin, only further increased the Lannisters' prestige. Tywin now focused on internal affairs, ensuring all members of the great house contributed to upholding the family's honor. When Balon Greyjoy rebelled against the crown, Tywin, along with King Robert and Eddard Stark, defeated the Iron Islands and quelled the uprising. On the road back to Casterly Rock after the tourney celebrating Prince Joffrey's naming day, Queen Cersei Lannister and Tywin Lannister received news that Jon Arryn, the Hand of the King, had died. House Lannister in A Song of Ice and Fire. A Game of Thrones, King Robert I Baratheon came to Winterfell to invite his childhood friend, Lord Eddard Stark, to be the Hand of the King. Accompanying the king were Queen Cersei Lannister and her children, and Sir Jaime Lannister, Cersei's twin brother. Lysa Arryn, Catelyn's sister and Ned's sister-in-law, sent a secret letter accusing the Lannisters of being behind Jon's death. Eddard's second son, Bran, accidentally saw Jaime and Cersei having sex in the first keep, and Jaime pushed the boy out of the tower. Bran survived but fell into a coma. King Robert appointed Jaime as Warden of the East instead of allowing Jon's young son, Lord Robert Arryn, to inherit the title. Cersei's two cousins, Lancel and Tydos, served as Robert's personal guards. Tyrion Lannister, Cersei and Jaime's younger brother, traveled to Castle Black of the Night's Watch to see the Wall. An assassin tried to kill Bran with a Valyrian steel dagger. Catelyn secretly went to King's Landing to inform Eddard and was told by her childhood friend, Lord Petyr Baelish, that the dagger belonged to Tyrion. Catelyn later captured Tyrion at the inn at the crossroads, even though he claimed he had no connection to the attack on Bran. Instead of returning to Winterfell, Catelyn took Tyrion to the Eyrie, where Lysa further accused him of being involved in Jon Arryn's death. Tyrion won his freedom thanks to Bronn's victory in a trial by combat. Upon returning through the mountains of the Vale, he successfully forged an alliance with the mountain clans. Meanwhile, Tyrion's capture gave his father, Lord Tywin Lannister, a pretext to send Sir Gregor Clegane to raid and pillage the Riverlands, intending to lure Eddard Stark out and capture him for a trade. However, Eddard was currently injured after a fight with Jaime and was bedridden. Jaime fled back to Casterly Rock, while Eddard sent Lord Beric Dondarrion to deal with Gregor. Eddard discovered the truth that Cersei's children, Prince Joffrey, Princess Myrcella, and Prince Tommen, were not King Robert's but bastards born from her incestuous relationship with Jaime. Before he could inform Robert, Cersei had her cousin Lancel give the king spiked wine during a hunt, causing him to be fatally gored by a boar. Eddard intended to support the king's brother, Stannis Baratheon, for the throne over Prince Joffrey, but was arrested and imprisoned by Cersei and Petyr Baelish's collusion. Tywin became the hand of King Joffrey, while Jaime replaced Sir Barristan Selmy as the Lord Commander of the King's Guard. When the war erupted, Jaime won victories at the Battle of Golden Tooth and River Run. His father Tywin and Uncle Kevin also captured many strongholds in the Riverlands. Upon hearing of his father's imprisonment, Eddard's son Robb Stark gathered his vassals and marched south. In the skirmish on the Green Fork, Roose Bolton's feint distracted Tywin, allowing Robb Stark, combined with the Frey forces, to ambush and capture Jaime at the Battle of Whispering Wood, then relieve River Run with the Battle of the Camps. The council initially planned to have Robb join the Night's Watch after pleading guilty to treason. However, Joffrey suddenly ordered Eddard's execution, making peace impossible. Simultaneously, Tywin sent Tyrion back to the capital, temporarily serving as the hand of the king while he personally continued the war in the Riverlands. A clash of kings. The two younger brothers of the late King Robert, Stannis and Renly, rebelled, vying for the Iron Throne with Joffrey. Robb Stark was crowned king in the north and king of the Trident and continued to march south to avenge his father. The conflict became known as the War of the Five Kings. Tywin Lannister was currently stationed at Harrenhal to prevent King's Landing from being attacked. He also ordered Tyrion to bring the girl Shae to the capital. However, Tyrion disobeyed the order. At Lannisport, Sir Stafford Lannister began recruiting a new army for House Lannister. In the power struggle at King's Landing, the hand of the king, Tyrion, constantly clashed with the regent Queen Dowager Cersei. He proactively sought alliances and established relations with House Martell, betrothing Myrcella Baratheon to Prince Trystane Martell. After Myrcella's ship departed for Dorne, riots erupted in King's Landing. Tyrion's cousin Tytos was married to Emmon Frey to acquire House Frey. Unfortunately, Titus went missing amidst the chaos. Tyrion attempted to free Jaime from Riverrun prison, but failed. He later discovered Cersei's affair with her cousin Lancel Lannister and forced Lancel to be his informant, threatening his life. Robb Stark crossed the Golden Tooth, defeated Stafford at the Battle of Oxcross, and pillaged the Westerlands. When Renly was assassinated and Stannis was besieging Storm's End, Tywin marched his army to intercept Robb, but was intercepted by Sir Loras Tyrell at the Battle of the Red Fork and defeated. Meanwhile, Stannis captured Storm's End sooner than expected and advanced towards King's Landing. Thanks to Tyrion organizing the defenses of King's Landing, Tywin's reinforcements arrived just in time, and Petyr Baelish convinced House Tyrell to ally with them. The Lannister forces repelled Stannis in the Battle of the Blackwater. During the battle, Tyrion was severely wounded in the face by Sir Mandon Moore, but was saved by Podrick Payne. After the battle, most of Stannis' vassals defected to Joffrey. Tywin reclaimed his position as Hand of the King. Lancel was severely injured and granted the Castle of Derry, establishing House Lannister of Derry. In the Riverrun dungeon, Jaime confessed to Catelyn Stark that he had pushed Bran, but insisted he was not the one who sent the assassin. A storm of swords upon hearing that his two sons, Bran and Rickon, had been murdered by the traitor Theon Greyjoy at Winterfell. Catelyn secretly released Jaime Lannister. In exchange, he had to safely return Sansa and Arya. Few knew that Arya had fled King's Landing long ago. Brienne of Tarth and Ser Cleos Frey, Jaime's cousin, escorted him back to King's Landing. Cleos was unfortunately killed by outlaws near Maiden Pool. Brienne and Jaime were captured by the mercenary group Brave Companions. Their leader, Vargo Hoat, ordered Jaime's sword hand to be chopped off. Meanwhile, Lord Rickard Karstark murdered two of Robb's prisoners, Tion Frey and Willem Lannister, Jaime's cousins, for revenge. Tywin refused to name Tyrion as the heir to Casterly Rock, and instead appointed him Master of Coin. He also married Tyrion to Sansa to take control of the Winterfell inheritance, snatching the opportunity from House Tyrell. Kevan was appointed Master of Laws by his brother. Margaery Tyrell was betrothed to King Joffrey, while Loras was betrothed to Cersei. However, Lord Mace Tyrell, under pressure from his mother, Olenna, disapproved of the latter betrothal. Cersei was stripped of her regency and her position on the Small Council. Tywin also restored the title of Warden of the East to House Arryn and reappointed Pycelle as Grand Maester. Upon hearing that Robb Stark had broken his betrothal to House Frey to marry Jane Westerling, the daughter of a minor vassal under his command, Tywin conspired with Rose Bolton and Jane's mother, Sybil Spicer. The brave companions delivered Jaime back to Harrenhal, which was currently occupied by Bolton and Enys Frey. Instead of sending Jaime to Lord Edmure Tully to continue his imprisonment at Riverrun, Rose sent him back to King's Landing, leaving Brienne for Vargo to do with as he pleased. Jaime learned the truth and returned to rescue Brienne from Harrenhal. Steelshanks Walton then took over the duty of escorting them back to the capital. Jaime's hand was treated by Qyburn upon his return. At the wedding of Edmure and Rosalind Frey at the Twins, Tywin's conspiracy was executed. Robb, Catelyn Stark, and many other loyalists were murdered and taken captive in the Red Wedding. Houses Stark and Tully were replaced by houses Bolton and Frey. After this event, most of the vassals loyal to Stark and Tully surrendered to the crown. Tywin continued to arrange the marriages of House Frey to Sir Lancel Lannister, Sir Daven Lannister, and Joy Hill. After the forces of Renly Baratheon and Robb Stark were destroyed, Stannis Baratheon and his small remaining force continued the rebellion. The Greyjoys began to invade the north. House Lannister was now at the height of its power. At his own wedding to Margaery Tyrell, King Joffrey Baratheon was poisoned to death. Tommen Baratheon succeeded his brother. Tyrion was accused of the crime and brought to trial, presided over by Tywin, Mace Tyrell, and Prince Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper of Dorne. During the trial, after being falsely accused by his own mistress Shae, Tyrion demanded a trial by combat. Knowing that the prosecuting champion was Sir Gregor Clegane, Oberyn Martell volunteered to fight for Tyrion to avenge his sister Elia, who had been murdered by Gregor during the sack of King's Landing. However, Oberyn lost and was killed, leading to Tyrion being sentenced to death. Upon his return, Jaime had changed significantly and became increasingly distant from his family. He clashed with Tywin when he refused to leave the Kingsguard to become the heir to Casterly Rock. The Valyrian steel sword gifted by his father was named Oathkeeper by Jaime and given to Brienne, urging her to help him fulfill his promise to Catelyn to protect Sansa and Arya. Both Jaime and Tyrion, who had been wrongly accused by Catelyn Stark, concluded that Joffrey was the one who had sent the assassin to kill Bran Stark. Jaime forced Varys to free Tyrion. Before leaving, the dwarf confessed to Jaime the truth about Cersei's infidelity and retaliated against his brother for what had happened to Tysha years ago. He claimed to have poisoned Joffrey. On his way out, Tyrion snuck into Tywin's chambers to strangle Shae and then killed his father with a crossbow. At the Eyrie, Sansa learned that it was Lysa Arryn and Petyr Baelish, not the Lannisters, who were behind the death of Lord Jon Arryn. A feast for crows, news of Tywin. Lannister's death spread across the Seven Kingdoms. Cersei returned to assume the position of regent and Lady of Casterly Rock, eager to prove she was more capable than her father. She abandoned all of Tywin's plans and appointed her loyalists to important positions in the court. Kevan Lannister was offered the position of Hand of the King, but refused unless the regency was also given to him. This demand was rejected by Cersei. To retaliate against her uncle, she gave the title of Warden of the West and the management of Casterly Rock to Sir Davin and Damian Lannister, respectively. Sir Harris Swift, a sycophant, and Kevan's father-in-law was appointed Hand of the King, while Kevan was appointed Master of Whisperers. Kevan went to Derry to assist his son Lancel for a time, then returned to Casterly Rock. Cersei continuously ordered the hunt for Tyrion, fearing his revenge, killing many innocent dwarves everywhere. She also plotted to overthrow House Tyrell, suspecting their collusion with enemies. To build a new royal fleet, Cersei angered the Iron Bank of Braavos and the Faith. She also had the High Septon, whom Tyrion had appointed earlier, killed to appease the newly elected High Septon, who called himself the High Sparrow. Cersei permitted the re-establishment of the Faith militant. Euron Greyjoy, now king of the Iron Islands in the north, led his army to retake the Shield Islands, angering House Tyrell. Cersei ordered Lord Mace Tyrell to command the siege of Dragonstone so the Red Wind fleet could return to the Reach to confront the Ironborn. Cersei's scheme went as planned when the royal forces won, and Loras was severely burned by boiling oil. Simultaneously, Jaime was sent by Cersei to handle the siege of Riverrun, commanded by Daemon Lannister, and conquer the rest of the Riverlands. During this time, Jaime practiced sword fighting with his remaining left hand with Cerelyn Payne. He also visited Derry and heard that the young Lord Lancel had joined the Faith militant. At Riverrun, Jaime successfully persuaded Edmure Tully to surrender Riverrun. However, Sir Brynden Tully escaped. Cersei accused Margaery of adultery and treason. When visiting the Great Sept of Baelor shortly thereafter, Cersei herself was arrested by the High Sparrow for adultery, murder, and numerous other charges. At Riverrun, Jaime received a heartfelt letter from Cersei asking him to return to protect her in a trial by combat, but Ser Jaime did not reply and burned the letter. Lord Merryweather, who was currently serving as Hand, quickly fled King's Landing. Lord Orain Waters led Cersei's fleet out to sea. Lord Treasurer Harris Swift and Grand Maester Pycelle were forced to send a letter asking Kevan Lannister to return to King's Landing as the replacement regent. Brienne of Tarth, along with Sir Hyle Hunt and Tyrion's former attendant Podrick Payne, set out to find Sansa Stark in the northern Crownlands and eastern Riverlands. After encountering the Brotherhood without banners, the three were captured and brought before Lady Stoneheart, Catelyn. Here, due to carrying Jaime's sword and documents bearing King Tommen's seal, Brienne and her two companions were accused of being Lannister lackeys and were sentenced to death by hanging. A dance with dragons, Regent Kevan Lannister endeavored to rectify Cersei's mistakes and reconcile with House Tyrell. He appointed Mace Tyrell, along with two vassal lords, Paxter Redwine and Randall Tarley, as Hand of the King, Master of Ships, and Master of Laws, respectively. He also visited Cersei in prison and stated that her power would collapse regardless of the trial's outcome. When Cersei had to endure the walk of shame and procession naked through the streets of King's Landing, Kevan ensured King Tommen did not witness it. When Cersei was returned to the Red Keep, Qyburn introduced a new bodyguard, Sir Robert Strong. With the help of Varys and his close friend Illyrio Mopatis, Tyrion Lannister was secretly smuggled to Pentos across the Narrow Sea and arranged to meet Daenerys Targaryen. Accompanying Tyrion was Jon Connington, who served as Hand to King Aerys II Targaryen and was acquainted with Prince Rhaegar Targaryen. He immediately recognized the Lord of the Rock's son. The young man traveling with Jon was claimed to be Prince Aegon Targaryen, Rhaegar's son, who was believed to have been killed by Gregor Clegane. At a brothel in Sellerus, Tyrion was kidnapped by Ser Jorah Mormont and taken to Daenerys. Along the way, he met a dwarf girl named Penny, who had performed at Joffrey's wedding. When the ship Selisori Coran wrecked, Tyrion, Jorah, and Penny were all captured and sold as slaves. They nearly died in Dasnak's pit before the venue was dissolved by Daenerys. After their master Yezan Zo Kagaz died, the three joined a mercenary company called the Second Sons. There, Tyrion persuaded their commander, Ben Plum, to defect to Daenerys. The final stronghold in the south, loyal to Robb Stark, Raventree Hall, surrendered to Jaime. At Pennytree, Jaime unexpectedly met Brienne. She persuaded him to accompany her to rescue Sansa Stark from the Hound, Sandor Clegane. Kevan and the small council devised a plan to deal with the Faith militant and the Golden Company, led by Aegon, who had just landed in the Stormlands. He was unfortunately assassinated by Varys. Varys, who supported Aegon, believed that the death of the capable regent would further divide the Lannisters and Tyrells, creating favorable conditions for the Targaryens to return to Westeros.